Welcome to Toddlers in Tow. My name is Sherry Culver, and I am an elementary teacher here at Rural Virtual Academy. This presentation is for you if you are an RVA Home Mentor and you have school-age children and you also have an infant, toddler, or preschooler at home, or maybe you have more than one, an infant and a toddler, or a toddler and a preschooler. In this presentation, I will talk about how planning and preparation are the keys to success. When schooling at home, if you want your days to be productive and go smoothly, it is essential to plan and prepare materials and lessons ahead of time. I have a couple quotes here about planning and preparation. The first one is by Benjamin Franklin, who said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." And then here is another quote. I like this one from J.R.R. Tolkien, author of The Hobbit. "It does not do to leave a dragon out of your calculations if you live near him." Isn't that a cute little dragon? So when doing the planning and preparation, really, there are three things that you need to consider. The environment, the physical environment. It's important to put some thought into where you're going to do your schooling activities and how you're going to set that space up. The second thing you need to plan and prepare is your schedule. Daily schedules, also weekly schedules, and maybe even monthly schedules. Think about how your day progresses and what kids will be doing at each time of the day, starting with getting up in the morning, eating breakfast, getting dressed. Think about creating a morning routine. Consider when you'll teach different subject areas and what times of the school day you'll need to be providing a lot of help to your child on their assignments, and other times when they can work on independent learning activities. When creating your schedule, also include any chores, nap times, breaks, and meals. And I will go into more detail about this in just a little bit. Last but not least, you need to plan and prepare the learning activities, which includes your school-age children's lesson plans, and also the activities you will use to keep your younger children, your toddlers, occupied and entertained. And that is the main thing I want to talk about. So I'm going to use the word toddlers today, but I'm really talking about any of those children who are not yet in school. So you have infants, who are newborns up to age 1, and those usually are not the ones that make it difficult for you to do schooling with your other kids. They sleep, they can sit in a baby swing or a bouncer, they can be on your lap getting a bottle or nursing while you're working with your kids, and generally they're pretty easy to work with and work around. Then you have your toddlers, and those are the kids who are mobile. And once they learn to walk around age 1 or so, those toddlers up until about the age of 2.5 to 3 are into everything. And that's really who I am focusing this presentation on, what to do with those toddlers. As far as preschoolers go, by the time you have a 3 or 4-year-old, these children are often ready to participate in the lessons, particularly if their siblings are in kindergarten or first grade, and they can do some of the same activities and enjoy learning right along with their older brother or sister. So back to the first step, planning and preparing your learning environment. So first you need to choose where in your home learning is going to take place. And some people will refer to that as their home classroom. It could be one room, or it could be 2 adjoining rooms that you use. One that's kind of the playroom, that's for the toddlers and the play activity, and the classroom. And the area that's the classroom obviously needs to have a table or a desk space where kids can, who are doing schoolwork, can sit and work. You'll also want to have some kind of storage area for school supplies so that you are not leaving the classroom to go find a pencil sharpener or a book that's needed, or paper or anything else. You've got everything right there, and you don't need to really leave the area to find items that you need to do the lessons. And then the last step in preparing that learning environment is really baby proofing and making that room or rooms secure so that children are restricted to those areas, and so that the toddlers and preschoolers are not wandering off into other parts of the house and those are for obvious safety reasons. Now, as far as baby proofing, I have some pictures here, and I know that you as parents all know how to baby proof your homes, but there may still be some problem areas that the kids are getting into. Maybe you have a problem area where you plug in your cell phones with a charger that goes into the wall, or there's a particular shelf that they're always trying to get up on, or something that they can climb on. And that means you're constantly stopping what you're doing to go grab them and prevent them from getting into something that they shouldn't. So just really think that through and just baby proof your classroom and playroom area to the point where you could leave your children alone in that space in an emergency. Not that you're going to, but just if you had to, you could, and you could come back an hour later and they wouldn't be happy, but they would be safe and secure, because that's of the utmost importance. So when you're working with your students, your school age kids, you could become involved in what they're doing and just not be aware of something that's going on with your little one. And so having that environment baby proofed is crucial. So here I have just a few more visuals to really drive home the point about making that environment function well. When you have young children and you're schooling at home, the most important thing is not to have your home look like it's perfectly staged to sell and going to be in a magazine or on Pinterest. You may not be able to have plants on the floor if you've got toddlers. You may not have a lot of decorative stuff on your coffee table, and that's okay. Not everybody has a place in their home that they can use for a dedicated home classroom, but maybe you do have a dining room that you don't use. And that can become your home classroom learning environment and be dedicated just for that purpose for the most part. You can put plugs in your outlets to keep kids from sticking things in them, but we obviously have to use some of our plug-in outlets. So there are these boxes that you can purchase and plug things in, and then secure this enclosure around it so it keeps kids from playing with the plugins. And of course, they sell everything from door handle, safety latches for round doorknobs and for lever doorknobs, and baby gates. A lot of people nowadays have open concept living rooms and open concept homes, so it's not possible to just close off the room. And if that's the case, you might want to invest in something like this play yard that I have pictured here. And if you have infants, and particularly, you want to be able to have your hands free, because you know that you are holding and carrying your baby around a lot. So within that same learning space, have a place where you can safely lay them down. And so a pack and play, make use of baby slings and carriers, baby swings and bouncers, and take advantage of those and have them right in the classroom area so that you can set the baby down and have your hands free. Okay, now step number 2, the next step in planning and preparing, is to look at your schedules. Really think through your day. Think about not only when the lessons are going to take place, but include the morning routine, and think about what your kids are going to be doing from the time they get up in the morning until they start working on their schoolwork. Think about when meals are going to take place, when you're going to take breaks, when to set nap times. You may want to include chores that they have to do after breakfast or at other times of the day. And even young children can have chores that they're responsible for, like putting dishes away. Here's an example of a morning routine: making bed, tidying the room, eating breakfast, going potty, wash up. It's got pictures, so this one works for young children, that they can just see the pictures and see what they're supposed to be doing. Here's another example of a morning routine, and I've got the website there that you can go to see an example of that. And the purpose of this is partly just to establish good habits in your children, but also while they are doing that, while they're doing this morning routine, you can be getting one of your kids started working on their schoolwork. Also include nap times into your schedule. You're gonna have a child who's at the age where they still take naps. And you might want to use that time when your toddler is napping, to do a subject with your child, like a phonics lesson or a math lesson, where your school age child needs a lot more quiet time, focus time, and help from you, or more teacher time, so that you're not interrupted and it can be quiet and you can really focus. Also, when it comes to your schedule, be flexible and think outside the box a little bit. If you're using a curriculum like Bookshark, where you have a lot of the read alouds, you might want to do those in the evening so the whole family can be listening in. You might want to take advantage of some audio books. Some of the Bookshark read alouds have been read by RVA teachers, and we can share those audio recordings with you. You might want to do some of your lessons in the evening, or maybe on the weekend. It doesn't have to be 8 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can be flexible and you can do lessons at other times of the day. Sometimes the one parent who works outside the home, or who works more outside the home, takes on one of the subject areas. So perhaps they do the science, or perhaps they do the math. Just one subject that they take on and do. And what that does is just frees it up so that you don't have so much that you have to try to accomplish. If you are the home mentor who is home, you don't have as much that you need to get done during the days, if you have multiple children and little toddlers in tow. You might want to try block scheduling, where you do several lessons in one subject area in a row. And that can save time because you're not transitioning from one subject to the other, and it just helps you get through your day a little quicker. You can also stagger children's start times. Not everybody needs to get up at the same time. We know teenagers typically like to sleep in later, and you probably have a child in your family who is, just always been an early riser. So what you can do is get them up and get them going. And once you get them going on their lessons, the next child can get up and start doing their morning routine and get going. Here's another example of a daily routine. And you can see that this person has thought about and scheduled everything from breakfast to screen time to schoolwork, free play, read alouds, nap time, quiet time, and they've just scheduled their whole day. That's not to say that it's always going to happen like that, but giving some thought ahead of time is helpful. Here's another example of a daily schedule. This one is simple, but it's just a basic daily schedule, and that includes both the mom and the kids. And Isabel on the right there is probably the toddler, so her schedule includes table play, screen time, free play time, nap time, and so forth. Okay, so step 3 in the planning and preparation is planning the lessons and the activities and preparing materials. And so for your school age child, you probably already know that you have to spend some time preparing ahead of time. And some parents have told me that they like to set aside a specific time during the week, like Sunday evening is just their time to sit down, look at what's coming up in the week ahead, and plan and prepare, get materials ready, and just be ready for the week. Now, in addition to planning your school age kids' activities, you're also going to want to plan what your toddlers and preschoolers are going to do. And that's what I'm really going to go into in depth. You also want to think about having independent activities for children to work on. So plan and prepare some independent work time activities. And if it's paperwork, you may put these in a special folder or basket so that the kids know that this is where they go when it's their independent work time. Maybe you make it a choice time where they can choose out of that what they want to do, but they can work on those activities fairly independently. And this might include some copy work. You might have some extra worksheets in there for math fact practice or practicing spelling words, some flashcards that they can go through and practice on their own. And that independent work time can also include other educational activities like educational computer games or websites. Reading eggs and math seeds are an example of something they could be doing during independent work time. Maybe they have independent reading time. Maybe they play a musical instrument and that's their like piano practice time. So kind of really be specific about what kids can do during their independent work time. And part of the reason for doing that is just if you just say, okay, now you're done with this part of your lesson and let them just go off and play, when you want to bring them back again and resume the next lesson that you're going to do, say that you let them go off and do whatever they want while you work with another child. But if you keep them in a routine and keep it more structured where the children know what independent activities they are allowed to do during that time, it's going to kind of keep them in school mode for one thing. And it's also going to help you to bring them back once you're ready to start working with again. This is just a picture of something that was once suggested by a parent. They used this for each of their kids. And so inside this storage clipboard was where they put the child's pages for the day. You know, maybe this is where they put all their work for the day, or maybe you just use it for their independent work. So you have some papers in there and they can take them from inside and they can clip it on top and go find a spot to work on things independently. These are also nice for taking in the car. If you all of a sudden need to take a child to the doctor and everybody needs to come along, you can have this ready to go and they can keep working on things and have a surface to write on so they can do some things. Okay, and now we're getting to the meat of my presentation, which is really on preparing the toddler and preschooler activities. And you may have heard of these before. Sometimes people call them busy bags, or really they can be any kind of container, a busy bin or a busy box. And you're gonna be creating a collection of activities. And you're not gonna be able to do this all overnight. So start out slow and start out with a few bags or boxes and just keep adding to them until you have a total of about 40 activities. And that will give you 2 activities to use per day for each school day. And that should last you a month before you restart the rotation. So they have all these different things to do until they start over again and repeat them. You can use, for containers, you can use Ziploc bags, either 1 gallon ones or the smaller ones, depending on what you're storing. Shoe boxes, totes, just any kind of container that works and is easy to store, because you got to think about how you're going to store these things too. And the key is that these are to be used only during school time. You could even call these your toddler's schoolwork. This is your schoolwork. You're going to work on your schoolwork when the other kids are working on their schoolwork. Another key thing is you really want to keep these things reserved for that time so that they're interesting and new. And I'll have another slide coming up just on the whole concept of novelty versus familiarity. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So don't include those things that they like to play with every day, because you're going to keep these things put away when it's not school time to use them. You don't need to spend a lot of money. You can, I'm pretty sure most people have enough toys and materials already in their house that they can use to put in busy bags. Toys that are in sets or you need all the pieces to play with them, are good ones to put in busy bags. And because if they're just those toys were mixed in with all their other toys, the kids can't really play with them anyway, because in the way they were intended, because they only have a few pieces here and there. They can't complete the puzzle because puzzle pieces are missing. They can't stack the cups because there's cups missing, and it's just not as fun to play with. So they just kind of end up contributing to the mess and not really getting used the way that they're supposed to be used. So things that are, like I said, puzzles, stacking cups, stacking rings, games and toys that have multiple pieces, building sets, play sets that go together. Things like that are good to put in busy bags. And then you're going to have them all together, and it makes it more fun. So it's like if you have a toy cow, it's not that fun to play with a toy cow, but if you have a toy cow and a horse and a chicken and some little fences, and you keep that in a busy bag and maybe a gallon tote or in a storage bin, then it's fun because you can really set them up and make a little farm scene and play with them together. But if that one, if those things are all spread out and mixed in with the other toys, sometimes they don't end up being played with very much. These can also be used once you set up these little busy bags. These may also be used for other things, like when you go to the doctor's office again, or in church or a restaurant or someplace where you need to keep kids busy and quiet, maybe in a car ride. So they have multi-purposes, but you're just going to bring them out for things like that and not have them out all the time. So talking about things that are novel or new versus the familiar. This is actually a interesting subject. About how we find novel things or new things interesting. So our brains are wired to take notice of anything new because our brain wants to make sense of a new stimulus. Your baby's brain will study a new object, determine if it's a safety or a threat, and place it in a mental category based on her observations and newfound knowledge. But once she figures it out, her attention will quickly move on to the next new thing. So it's there's a lot of research on this, and if you just kind of Google and say novelty versus familiarity and the brain or something like that, it's interesting to read. So I hope your playroom doesn't look like this, but I know this is not like this is something that doesn't happen. I know that there are people's playrooms that do look like this. And so you can imagine for a child going into this, it's kind of overwhelming and disorganized, and they really don't even know how to sit down and play because there's just so much stuff to try to sift through. If you don't end up doing busy bins after you hear the rest of my presentation here, at least maybe consider doing like a toy rotation. And a toy rotation is simply having a set amount of toys that out on display for your child to play with, and then storing away other toys that you can rotate in and out. So you're not really setting up busy bins, but you're just rotating what's available. And when you pull toys out of storage for your children, they will respond as if they're fun new toys that they've never seen before, and they act like they're new and they're interested in them again. It also allows you to reduce the number of toys you have in your playroom, which can be a great way to promote focus and let them master skills, whether it's those stacking cups or rings. They can actually work on sorting by size or color or whatever, and it will also keep your home tidier as well. So containers. Now you can get really fancy and have matching little bins, but it's really not necessary. So these are some things you might have. You might use the Ziploc bags, like I said. In the center bottom of this slide, I have pencil pouches that have a clear view pocket, and the holes in the side so that you can put them into a binder. And those can be nice for smaller busy bags. You can use shoe boxes. You can get the nice storage bins. It's especially nice if they have handles and latches, so that kids can even pick those up and carry them, and they're not going to spill out. Let's see. But you don't need to go out and buy things for that either. You could just use containers you have around your house already, like baskets, food container storage you can repurpose. Just any kind. Here's a hanging closet storage bag that might be a nice way to store your busy bins. You can use under bed bins like this to store some things, because you really have to think about not only what you're going to put in them, but where you're going to store them. On this next slide, there's a link to a YouTube video, and this person explains how she uses those pencil pouches, and that have the three holes in them for use in a binder. But she uses these little clipping rings to put several together, and then she can just grab them and go if she wants to take them in the car or something like that. But she just puts a collection together, and you can kind of flip through it just like if you had a book. And here's another example, a storage example of using Ziploc bags, binder clips, those little clips. These are really cute, colorful ones. Usually they're black, but I'm sure you can find pretty ones too. And then again, those rings that can be shut, and it looks like a towel rod or something that they've hung them on, and that's a way to store them. When you start putting these busy bags or bins together, the first time you show your child, introduce the activity to them, you want to define right off the bat, where is the space that they're going to use this? Is it going to be a table activity where they need to sit up at the table, or maybe in their high chair, or at a desk? Is it something they can do on the floor? If it's a messy one, maybe you define the space with a blanket or a vinyl shower curtain. I'll show some examples of using a kiddie pool as a way to define a space and keep the mess kind of enclosed. A play mat, a blanket, something like that. So explain to them. Don't just assume that they know where they can use it. If you have something like Play-Doh, obviously most parents will say, nope, if you're going to play with Play-Doh, you have to be sitting up at the table. But you can do that with all of the materials that are in your busy bins. It's just explain to the kids where they can use it. Here's an example of kids using Play-Doh. The picture on the left is actually my granddaughter, and she's 3.5. She's really too big for this little booster chair that she's sitting in. But it was novel to her. It was new to her. She doesn't usually sit in it. And so when she came to my house, I put her in there. She was actually limited. She couldn't get out of there by herself. So it kept her in place with her Play-Doh. And she thought it was the coolest thing to sit there and play with her Play-Doh on that little tray. And the cup holders where she set the Play-Doh container. And then I just put the bin next to her that had all the Play-Doh tools. So she just thought that was really cool. And then on the right is a little boy, and he's got Play-Doh and some Legos for making impressions in it. Looks like he even might know how to roll a snake, and showing kids how to cut up or roll Play-Doh into kind of a snake, and then use a scissor. It's an excellent way to introduce scissors and start them with scissor skills, because they can cut through and cut their snake into little pieces, and that's a good fine motor activity. But you really want to define the play space. In my research for working on this presentation, I discovered this, and I thought it was a neat thing to share. I didn't know that something like this existed, and I thought that looked like a kind of a cool thing, where you have a play mat. And so if you have something with a million pieces like Legos, they play on that mat, and when you're done, I'm sure you just pick it up and everything just kind of slides back into the storage basket. I just thought that was pretty neat. You could have a play mat blanket and just let the toddler know that that's where they need to be. Here are some examples of using inflatable swimming pools as just a containment area for a child who is not yet crawling, it looks like on the top picture, or using it for like an indoor sandbox kind of, only they have put, I think that is dried corn that you can put in there and just have that be a play area. You can also define play areas with tape on the floor. You can also tape things on the wall. I'll show some pictures of that. Here maybe this is a hallway and you want to keep the kids out of the way, or maybe this is in a kitchen, it looks like. Defining a play space with tape and making a little area with roads, I guess, to drive the cars around, and defining the play space that way. Another thing I discovered as I was researching was this. You can find it on Amazon. It's tape that is colored to look like roads with lines down the middle and down the sides. I thought that was interesting too. Here's some more tape on the floor activities. Walking on a so-called balance beam, where they have to walk on a line on the floor. Maybe just telling them to keep what they're playing with inside that defined space with the tape, or like a hopscotch activity where they hop from one tape shape to another. And the other thing is busy work. Busy work sometimes has a negative connotation, because when kids are school age, we don't want them just doing busy work, which is when we define it that way and think of it as a negative, it's where it's like they're just doing stuff just to keep them busy, and it's not like they're learning something new. But for toddlers, busy work is okay. Toddlers learn through busy work, and it's a way to develop their focus and concentration and their fine motor skills. And it's important to remember that having an end goal is not the point. Children don't care if there's a product at the end. They just are having fun with the process. And that sometimes as adults, we have to remind ourselves that that's not the important thing, and avoid the temptation to intervene if they want to use the materials in a different way, as long as it's not inappropriate use of materials. Then you may want to show them how they're supposed to use it, but if they're happy doing something else with it, let them do that, because they're discovering and they're learning through their play, through their busy work. This is an example. This is my grandson, and he is 2.5, or he's not quite 2, sorry. And he liked to use these markers because his older sister uses them, and they are Crayola brand, ultra clean, washable, and they really come off easily. They're nice. I think these are awesome. He was not really interested in coloring on this particular day. He just wanted to take the covers off and on the markers and then put them in the box and then take them out of the box. And he did this for a long time. And he was quite meticulous about putting the markers in with the colored caps all facing out. And another thing that was interesting is, as an adult, I would say, here, let me find you a clean page to color on. And my grandkids don't really care if they have a clean page in the coloring book to color on. They sometimes choose a page that's already been colored. And so we get a lot of mileage out of our coloring books, because pages that have been colored on get colored on 3 or 4 more times until there's no white space left. But so just kind of taking away our adult expectations about what they're supposed to be doing. If they're busy and they're happy and they're developing their fine motor skills with what they're doing, that's good. That's what we want them to do. Okay, so these busy bins, fine motor activities are going to be, because we're talking about smaller things, and a lot of these can fit in a smaller container, smaller space. So a lot of the things that I'm going to suggest as activities are going to be those kinds. You might have them sit at a table or sit somewhere and just be in a small defined space, but it can include cutting and tearing or gluing scraps of paper, using stickers, sorting objects, stringing beads. I'll talk about all these. Transfer activities, using Play-Doh, using finger paint, painting with water, and just coloring and activity books. So when you're putting together busy bags, you can buy things, you can DIY things, or like I said, just think about the things you already have and put them together in a way that's going to be novel and new for your child. So here's an example of a homemade matching game where the person took a picture of some of the toys against white paper, a white background, and then it became a matching activity where they match the object to the picture of the object. And then on the right side are some matching game flashcards. And even if like a preschooler or a toddler is not really able to play them as a matching game, if they only see these once, just think about it, they're only going to see this once a month, and you bring those out, they will probably entertain themselves for quite a while, just looking at them and lining them up and moving them around and talking about what's on the cards. So it will keep them busy without actually having you have to supervise and set it up like a game. You can also have your school-age kids use some of these busy bags because your kindergartner is probably not going to need as much long as of a school day as your older kids, and they can be doing some of these things and using some of them as well. Here's an example of nuts and bolts. You can buy a busy bag on the right, or you can put together a busy bag with actual nuts and bolts. This would probably be for an older preschooler or maybe even a school-age kindergartner, and a great fine motor activity. But obviously there's pieces that they could put in their mouth, so you wouldn't use that with real little kids. If you're going to purchase toys, some good examples of toys to put in busy bags are those with multiple pieces, those that have kind of multiple ways of using. So like the stacking cups could be stacked on top of each other. You can put things inside them. You can nest them. Having them be fairly mess-free, something that fits easily into a bag or a bin and can be done in a small area or at the table. Puzzles are great because, as we know, when they're in with the rest of the toys, it's just really hard to keep the pieces together. So if you get extra big Ziploc bags and put those in there, and they only see this puzzle once a month, it's going to be just like it's brand new to them, and they will really enjoy it. And they make a lot of products now that are mess-free. So even pretty young kids can do some of these things without you worrying about them, wrecking the furniture, the walls, or whatever. The Melissa and Doug brand paint with water books are really fun. They have washable school glue, glue sticks, and then those ultra clean washable markers. They can use marker or stickers. If you want to do finger paint, you can do it in a mess-free way by putting the paint inside a Ziploc and put some globs of different colors in there and let them mix and see what colors they come up with when they mix them together, and use their finger to kind of draw. And that's what kind of a modified finger painting activity. Or just paint with water. If you have foam brushes and construction paper, it will make a mark on the page once they dip it in just regular water, and then as it dries, then the marks they've made will fade, and you can use them again. And young kids may enjoy doing that. Stickers, the really young, like my almost 2-year-old grandson enjoys just sticking stickers. He just pulls them off and sticks them down, and he might stick like 10 stickers right on top of each other. And that's another one where I have to just let him do it. Great fine motor, pincer grip activity. keeps them busy. And at the dollar store, stickers are really inexpensive. So it's a pretty reasonable thing to do and keep them quite busy for a long time. You could make it better for an older toddler or preschooler by having it be kind of a color match, like is shown on this particular picture where she's matching up the colors. More examples of stickers, having them put them on a line that you've put. Here's another defined play space by taping paper down to the floor. And then I want to talk about Montessori transfer activities. I taught Montessori in a Montessori classroom, and they have what they call transfer activities. Typically, they are set up with a little tray on a shelf, and the kids are taught how to carry the tray carefully over to their table, and then they transfer material from one container to another. So you see on this picture, they are transferring beans with a spoon from one bowl to another with some kind of a tweezer, a larger tweezer from one bowl to another, pouring from one little pitcher to another pitcher, and then good fine motor activity is to pick up the spilled beans and put them back into the pitcher. Just make sure your kids aren't ones that are going to put beans in their up their noses or in their ears, because we all have heard of children who have done that, and it could be kind of a hassle to take them to the doctor to get it out if it goes that far. There are also transfer activities using water, where the child uses a sponge to soak up the water in one bowl and squeeze it out in the other bowl, or use an eyedropper or a baster like you would use in cooking, like a turkey baster. You can also find these little tongs like this, and they can transfer something like these colored pom-poms. This was on a website, just a Save the Dinosaurs activity, where they use tape to tape the toys down. And depending on what kind of tape you used, some might come up quite easily, and some might take a while for them to pick at and try to get the dinosaurs or whatever toys that you tape down. And it's another thing to keep them busy, but also is really good fine motor. Play-Doh is awesome. You can make your own or buy it, obviously. When I was in a preschool classroom teaching, it was part of my routine to make it every Sunday for the week ahead, because we went through so much of it. And I found a very good recipe, and I have linked the URL on here is a link to one that's the same as the one that I used, that lasted really well and didn't dry out. It was a good recipe. If you want to get more ambitious and create like Play-Doh toys or trays like this, where you have different things that you switch out for them to poke into the Play-Doh, you could make it fancier. Tearing paper and using a glue stick. This is something, if kids aren't quite ready for cutting paper, they might be able to tear up paper into little pieces and then use a glue stick to stick them down and just give them a simple shape to fill up with the paper as they glue it down. Stringing beads is a good activity. Or for kids, sometimes they need something stiffer to string onto. So using pipe cleaners in place of a lacing string and needle can sometimes work better. And here there's cut up pieces of straws or little pony beads, if you know that they're not putting things in their mouth anymore. Here's a homemade color sorting game where they saved the lids from baby food, squeezable food pouches, and then have an egg carton and tongs for color sorting or whatever the child decides to do with it. Here's another color sorting activity with popsicle sticks. There's a color matching activity with colored clothespins and paint swatches. Children love to look at photos. And so just providing a wallet filled with family photos may keep them busy for a while. They take them out, put them on the table, try to stick them back in again, and it's just a good thing. Would be a really good one to have just for taking with with when you're going somewhere because it's so compact. Magnetic pattern blocks, and a great way to store those might be in a metal tin, like you get cookies in, or at Christmas time, or some kind of candy in, where they have a lid. You can use the container just for storing the pieces, and then the lid can be the base for putting the magnetic shapes on. Kids, toddlers, love to stick things in holes and then take them out again. They like to fill and dump. Sometimes they talk about fill and dump activities. And here are some examples of ways that you can just easily keep them busy with things around the house. Containers like a Parmesan cheese container or a spice jar, and putting Q-tips in or straws in. Here they've got paper towel rolls with tape to the walls to put pom-poms through and drop them through. This is an activity using a diaper old wipes container, and just having different types of fabric strips that the child can stuff in and take back out. So they love to stick things in holes and take them back out again. You can buy lacing cards online, or you can make your own easily. This is a fun activity I found on a website called Lint Roller Worm Pickup, where the child uses the lint roller, rolls it over these little pipe cleaner worms, and then picks them off there and puts them in the bowl. You could probably also use little pieces of yarn. I think that might be a little bit more challenging, but it would keep them busy. You can also create indoor quote-unquote sandboxes using rice or cornmeal. And you can set this on the floor inside a toy pool, and have it be on a shower curtain for easier cleanup, and just provide stacking cups and funnels and spoons. You can hide small objects and toys under the rice that they have to dig for and find. You could hide metal objects and give him or her a magnet to help find them. Put in vehicles, toy vehicles and trucks and dump trucks and bulldozers. You can include a little brush and dustpan set for sweeping up when it gets spilled outside. They like doing that. Here's a smaller version where it's just kept in a pan. That child looks a little bit older, where they're doing a search and find for alphabet letters in the rice, and then matching them up with the letters on a piece of paper. So it's kind of it could be a school age activity as well. And just a bin, some things to scoop and funnel. Another one of searching for alphabet letters. Looks like a rice sensory bin. And then matching them up with the alphabet chart. Here the child has this is a type that stands on the floor. It's kind of a play activity table that is made for indoors, and you can use rice in that and give them some construction vehicles to scoop up and play. On this picture, it doesn't look like they have anything under the table, but you could put something down. It might be easier not to have something down though, because then it's easier to vacuum or sweep up. And then I've talked mostly about fine motor activities, but you can also keep them busy with things like balls and bean bags, where they need to, throw a bean bag at a goal, whether it's a basket or here he's got the numbers on the steps that the child's throwing the bean bags at. And on the left is a toddler. They love to put things in holes and watch them come out the other end. And that's just a PVC pipe with a elbow on it, so it pops out the end. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. I hope you got some ideas of things that you can do to keep your toddler or preschooler busy while you are schooling your older children and doing their lessons with them. At the end of this presentation, I have many of the websites that I found these ideas on, so you can check those out for more ideas. And just Googling and looking for the search terms busy bags or busy bins, you'll probably find many on your own. And so enjoy trying these out with your preschoolers or toddlers.